Okay, good morning everybody and welcome to the Friday morning warm-up, number 117, and we're looking at modes today. It's by far and away the most requested topic when I asked for some feedback. So when I say by far and away the most, I mean it was like two or three. But it was still by far and away the most topics suggested for something to cover in the Friday morning sessions. So we'll be looking at that later. We'll get started as usual with a bit of clapping, and we will just do what we did last week, which was the it's gone, there it is, the 3/2 clave, and just a rhythmic pattern used originally in Africa. That's where it came from. Then the slave trade took people and their cultures over to America, and particularly South America, and when they started producing music again freely, this was a natural rhythm for them to use as a basic pulse to their music. So you do find it in a lot of South American cultures. Okay, we're just going to clap that. So let's just get the metronome going, and I might do a little bit faster this time because you have done this one an awful lot. And I've lost my egg timer. There we go. There we go. Right, here we go. So after 4, a 3/2 clave. You can stamp your feet as well if you want to make it a bit harder for yourself. Here we go. After 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 2, 3. Last time. Here we go. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Good. The 3/2 son clave. Okay, let's move on, and we'll just warm up the instruments now. So if you'd like to get your instrument ready. The basic key that we're looking at today is C major. We're actually looking at modes from the key of C major, but C I think we'll call as our tonic for this little bit. So I'm just going to play the notes C. Got some of these phrases are getting very familiar, aren't they? I'm just going to play the note C for about a minute. So here we go. If you're ready to, I think I'm in tune. I should check really, shouldn't I? Oh, bit sharp. Sorry about that. Still a bit sharp. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do a little bit of singing if plucking your guitar is not doing much for you. La, la. Not sure about that. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, it's really just to get our ears kind of in tune with the tonic of the key that we're doing, as well as helping to warm up the instrument. Yeah, I think that's near enough in tune. Okay, let's do the next traditional thing, which of course is the chromatic scale, which I've always got you to do it from memory, which although obviously isn't easy at first, it's actually not an easy thing to notate. If you have tried reading a chromatic scale, there's an awful lot of sharps and flats and naturals, so it is probably best to learn it in all positions on your instrument as from memory, as is all scales really. So anyway, here we go, just very slowly at first. C chromatic scale, concert C, D and A for the B flat and E flat instruments. So after 4, 1, 2, all the way up, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now down. Fingering for the guitarist, I don't think I've mentioned this. Normally you would use all 4 fingers of the left hand, starting there, then the second finger, third finger and little finger, and then move up a string but down 1 fret and do the same thing. So you're kind of working your way to the end of the guitar, and then slide up the little finger on the last note to get the final note. Do that again, a bit faster. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And people blowing an instrument, if you were doing that by tutting, for example, perhaps do it by slurring next time and just trying a different approach. Okay, we'll do it a bit faster. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Faster still, 2 more to go. Maybe try staccato. Really short staccato notes. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1 more, super fast. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, the chromatic scale. Righty-ho, we're going to now look at modes, just a fairly basic sort of level, not to get too involved in them, because it's quite a complicated subject. Well, it's not a complicated subject, it's just sometimes a little bit tricky to get one's head around, and I'm only saying that from experience when I first started figuring these things out and trying to memorize them and get the terminology right. Modes, yes, you can think of them as scales, although Puritans seem to think that it's either a mode or a scale, but you can think of them as scales, 7-note scales, and don't stare too much at that sheet in front of you, because that might confuse you from what I'm saying. I'll put another thing on the screen. Tell you what, I'll put this on the screen. There you go. Right, we're going to look at the modes in particular in C major, concert C major, but I just want to talk about them in C major because obviously without sharps and flats it's a little bit more straightforward. Now, we're all very familiar with the major scale or the major key and the minor keys, and you can generally tell when a song's in major or minor, not by the key signature at the top, because they often share key signatures, but it's usually in a piece of music simpler than that. It's actually what chord does it end on, what chord. And if a song goes through all sorts of motions and then finishes on a big F major chord. Ta-da! There's a very good chance it's in F major. And likewise, if it didn't have a key signature at the top, no sharps or flats, and it ended on an A minor chord, it's probably in A minor. But you can find tunes which are clearly finishing on, say, for example, D minor, but they don't have a key signature at the top. So is this in D minor, or is it in C, or is it in A minor? And it's probably in a mode. I say probably because it depends on the composer and their intentions at the end of the day, but it's probably a mode, and you'll see why in a minute. So what is a mode in practical terms? Well, we have the major scale that's shown below, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Okay, you're all familiar with that, I'm sure you are. That is also known as the Ionian mode. But just park that for 1 minute because we know it's the major scale. It just happens to be given this name. But a mode is generally when you start the scale on a different degree of the scale rather than the first one. So let's look at the same notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, but starting on D. Now it's going to sound different for a start because it's got D, E, F. I mean, that's a minor third. And if you were to play that scale on your instruments, you're welcome to play that scale now on your instrument if you like, you'll find it's got a completely different sound to C major, and yet it's the same notes. The root is now a D, not a C. So it's now a scale which is rooted on D, has a different sort of mood or mode feel to it, and if it starts, and it's starting on the second note of the C major scale, so therefore it is known as the Dorian mode. Okay, and not because it starts on D, D for Dorian, it's not that, or that's a way of remembering it. It's because it starts on the second degree of the scale. So it starts on the second degree of the scale, but it's playing the same notes as the parent major scale. It's known as the Dorian mode. Now you don't need to remember all these names. I'm just going to quickly whiz through the different modes, and we're going to concentrate on just two. So that's the Dorian mode. If you start on the third degree, so it will be E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, it's known as the Phrygian mode. This has got a much darker sound. In fact, you may notice that that's exactly the same as E natural minor, except that the F sharp on the second note is now an F, and that gives it a minor sound like natural minor, but with this strange little semitone at the beginning. So starting on E, it's called the Phrygian mode. Not used an awful lot. It's actually used a lot by heavy metal bands, that one. Strangely. Metallica use that scale a lot. Then we go on to the Lydian mode. This is when you start on the fourth degree of the major scale. So going from F to F in the key of C major. F, G, A, B, C, D, E. And if you notice there, that's very similar to the F major scale. F major would have a B flat, not a B. And that's the only difference between that and the major scale. So a song which ends on F major but doesn't have any sharps or flat in it is probably in a Lydian mode. And there we go. Okay, let's move on. We are going to look at this one in a little while, the mixolydian mode. This one starts on the fifth degree of the scale. So in the key of C, that will be G, because G is the fifth of C, D, E, F, G. So if you go from G to G through the notes of C major, that is known as G mixolydian. It's also known as the mixolydian of C, because that's where it's derived, but it's actually the G mixolydian scale. And if you want to know the difference between that and a major scale, well, have a look. What would G major normally be? G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp. Normally the G major scale would have an F sharp at the end. So it's exactly the same as the major scale, except the seventh note, the last but one, is flattened. That gives it a slightly bluesier sound than the major scale, which is why it is actually used a lot in blues music. And that's quite a commonly used one in all sorts of music, so we'll come back to that. Okay, a couple more quickly. The Aeolian mode, well actually A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I think you all know that. That's just the natural minor scale, A minor. And sure enough, the Aeolian mode is actually exactly the same as the natural minor, just going from A to A with no sharps or flats. So you actually know two of the seven modes from normal normal music, and we're going to look at two more today: the Dorian and mixolydian. The next one, Locrian, isn't really a mode; it's an artificial one just to fill the gap at the end, and it's just going from B to B. I don't know any song that's ever been written in that scale, apart from some that are artificially employing it just for effect. But yeah, so just very briefly then, Ionian at the top is actually the same as the major scale. Dorian, we'll look at that today, quite a common one. Phrygian, heavy metal bands play that a lot if you're into that sort of thing. Lydian, actually quite a nice sound, but I'm not looking at that today. Mixolydian, we'll look at that. And finally Aeolian, well that's the natural minor, so I think you're familiar with that already. So you probably know more about modes than you may realise if you haven't done this before. Right, let's start exploring and let's start playing as well. So first of all, we're just going to do that parent major scale that these modes come from. We're in concert C, so D or A for the other guys, B flats and E flats, and we're just going to play a 2-octave scale just so we get all the notes covered. If you can't quite reach the top note on your scale, then just stop before the end or jump back to the beginning. So I'm just going to play the top line all the way across after 4. So this is just really just the C major scale. Think of it as the Ionian mode if you want. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. One more time. 2, 3, 4. Good, you should all be familiar with that. Just the major scale, but 2 octaves. Now, as I said, the Dorian mode is the mode which starts on the second note of that scale. So if you can look back at the previous one, you'll see the second note is a D, concert D. Just identify your second note on that scale we just played. Now if we start from there and go up an octave, you get the Dorian mode, and it's very different sort of sound. It's a minor sound for a start because it's got a minor third at the beginning. So let's now play the first 2 bars of the second line, the Dorian mode, ascending. Here we go. First 2 bars. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it does sound different, doesn't it? Let's do that again. 2, 3, 4. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so we're playing all the same notes from the parent major scale, yet we just started on the second degree of the scale, and that is Dorian. So perhaps just try and remember that as a second degree Dorian. Find some way of connecting that to memorize it if you're not familiar with that. Let's just play it coming down. So we're just going to do the next 2 bars now. It's just the same thing but descending after 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again. 1, 2, 3, 4. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. The minor third at the beginning, the first and the third note, is what makes that a minor sound, even though it's notes from the major scale. Some people say that the word mode is actually just the old word for mood. Whether that's true or not, I'm not sure, but it's a way of thinking about it, because every mode has a different mood, different sound, a different feel. So I'm going to do the same thing now with the mixolydian. So where does the mixolydian come from? Well, as I said before, it's the 5th degree of the scale, starting on, and then carrying on through the parent major scale up to the octave. So that will give us clearly a different sound. And this is the one where it's like a major scale, except the 7th note is flattened. So we're now playing the next line, first 2 bars, the mixolydian mode. So we're going to be starting on the G, concert G, rather than C. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, clearly a major sound. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the sound of mixolydian, but we've just extracted it from C major, concert C, and done it as from the 5th degree. So we're just really looking at where these scales or modes are derived from. Let's just do that descending. So that's the next 2 bars on that line. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops. Sorry, start that again. I was completely on the wrong note there. What's that note there? G, you're right. 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. The next line is really just kind of a way of showing the difference between the scales and the not the parent scale, but the same scale starting on the same note. So if you were to look at a Dorian scale, we're on the bar 13 now, where it says Dorian starting on C or D or A. You'll see that in terms of the key signature, it's got 2 flattened notes compared to the C major scale. So Dorian's got a flattened 3rd and a flattened 7th compared to the major scale. So we'll just play that. We're just going to play that once. It's really just to hear the difference between this and the major scale. So just bar 13, 2 bars. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. There, you can see the 2 flats, or probably sharps, depending on the key you're in, showing the difference between that and the normal major scale. And the mixolydian the same, just the right hand 2 bars. You can see that it's only the 7th note which is different, and that's what I was saying earlier, that it has a 7th which is flattened compared to the major scale. So let's just play the next 2 bars. Mixolydian starting on C, D or A. 1, 2, 3, 4. But we've just jumped out of the key of C, just to show the differences between the scales. So it's a little bit of a sidestep, that line. If that didn't entirely make sense, just park it for now. We'll come back to that in another week. Right, now music is created in these modes. Whether the composer's aware of it or not, I'm not always sure. But so not all songs are written in the key of the major scale or the minor scale. We've got an example here of a tune clearly written in the Dorian mode, and that is Oye Como Va. Some of you will know it from the Santana record Abraxas, others will know it from John Seeley's Big Band, where it's often played, possibly in a different key to this, but the piece of music actually has two chords in it, a minor chord and a major chord, but neither of them are in the key center that's shown at the beginning of the page. And that's when you start to think, oh, we're in a different mode here. So this is in the Dorian mode, and we haven't got a key signature if you're in a concert pitch. If you're in C, if you're in D, you'll have 2, of course, showing the key center, but it's clearly rooted on D, concert D. Oh, sorry, yes, D, or E for the B flat instruments and B for the E flat instruments. So not rooted on C, or the parent scale. So it's rooted on the note, a tone above your key center. Okay, just let that thought sink in. And so we're just going to play the little melody which is written from Oye Como Va here. And you might recognize it. I'm just going to play it fairly slowly. So just going to play that line. And you can see the note it ends on is a tone above the key center of the key signature. Here we go. We're going to play those 4 bars. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 3, 4. Yeah. So that's a tone above the key center. Okay, let's play that again. A Dorian mode tune. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. One more time. 2, 3, 4. There we go. Normally melodies in the concert C, D or A would end on those notes, or certainly start on those notes. That was, but clearly it doesn't. It ends on a tone above, and that's what gives you the clue that it's a Dorian sound. Also, I haven't shown the chords on here, but the chords will be a bit of a clue as well. Yeah, it's just an example of Dorian, a Dorian tune. I believe Strawberry Fair is a Dorian melody, and I also looked it up on the internet and heard that if you know Riders on the Storm by the Doors, listen to that piano opening, which goes all the way down. That's a Dorian scale. So just a couple of examples. Righty-ho. I hope this is all making sense for those of you that aren't so familiar with modes. Let's do an example now of something which is in the mixolydian mode, and it so happens that Clocks by Coldplay is one of their early sort of big hits. Now, that's quite a lot to play there on that penultimate line. It's probably more for pianos, guitars and ukuleles than for other instruments, but let's play it anyway. You will recognise it when you hear it. Just listen to it if it's too many notes all going up and down at the same time, but it's a mixolydian mode chord sequence. We're going to strum this later as well. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Do that again. That was quite quite nifty. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, the reason for that being in mixolydian, not major, is that if it was in major, the F, and we're talking concert now, the F, the 7th note, would be a sharp, a semitone higher, F sharp. And that would sound like this. Let's see if I can play that. So I just raised the flattened 7th to the major, and suddenly it sounds completely different. So that's why it's in a mixolydian mode. We're now going to play the last line, which is the melody from that. So you can either play the previous one at the same time or play the melody. These two work together. So, and again, this has got an F, a concert F, a flattened 7th rather than a sharp 7th. So that's why it's a mixolydian mode tune. Here we go. Last line. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. You recognise that? And again, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. And the that first note is the tonal center of the song. The go down a tone for the mixolydian 7th, and that's the mixolydian different note, as it were. If it was major, that would be a semitone higher, and that would sound like this. If it was in the major scale. So there we go. Anyway, as I'm saying this, I do realise if you're new to this, it's quite a lot. It's quite a mind-boggling subject. So, but it's an important one, and hopefully that was a little inroad for you. If it's not new for you, then maybe that's consolidated some of the knowledge you've already got. Good. Okay, we're just going to finish off then strumming those chords to clocks. Well, I'm going to strum them. You can play along and practice your arpeggios and other things. Let's find the chord sequence. There we go. That's what I was playing. G, D minor, A minor. Yeah. Now you look at that and you can think, wow, G, D minor can't be in the key of G, because that would be D major. Ooh. So that's why I think I must be in a mode. Anyway, here we go. Final thing for today. I'm just going to strum those 4 chords and finish on the first one just for a minute. And you can play along. 1, 2, 3, 4. Last time. Finish on the first chord. Down. There you go. That's Clocks by Coldplay. The chords too, and or at least to the verse anyway. Bittersweet Symphony by the Verve. If you know that song, that's also in the mixolydian mode. Something to go and listen to. Good, right. Well, I hope you found that interesting and got something from it, even if it was just a little bit of a warm up. So I'm just going to stop that and say thank you very much, everybody, for coming along. And I won't be here next week, getting me internet upgraded. And I won't be here the week after because it's a bunch of us.